Sorry, look at this painting I just got.
Oh wow! It's like giving one of those Renaissance
Right?
paintings.
I know.
I
it's
love.
so-
I like it.
I love
It's
this.
like one of my.
Renaissance?
Yeah?
Oh, I love that.
Oh, really? Me too.
And the tour. It's like so amazing.
What are we talking about?
Beyonce? Like, have you seen?
No. That's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about Beyonce's Renaissance. We're talking about the European Renaissance.
They have it there too?
They don't have Beyonce there, but like they have Renaissance back then, and then Beyonce.
What was it like?
Pause. At this point, let's take a moment to check out the history of the Renaissance. And not Beyonce.
Renaissance is a period in Europe notable by its whole renewed classical learning and culture. The word Renaissance is actually a French word that means rebirth.
Yeah. And the reason why it was said as rebirth is because Renaissance came after a period called the Dark Ages.
Ooh, I know that period. Is it where there was a plague that took millions of lives and the Roman Empire fell under the hands of Mehmed the Conqueror?
Yes, that plague that you mentioned is called the Black Death that took place in 1347 to 1353. Because of this great pandemic, millions of people died and the economic condition at that time was very concerning.
Then came Sultan Mehmed II, aka Mehmed the Conqueror, in 1453, which resulted in the fall of Constantinople. Because of these massive events, many people fled from Constantinople to the cities all over Europe, but most of them chose Florence.
Mind you, when people move from one place to another, they normally bring their belongings with them, right? But for these people, they brought classic arts and sciences from Western Rome, and boom, everyone was influenced.
Wait, that's it? Florence just welcomed tourists and their whole culture is renewed?
Well, that's not it though. At that time in Florence, there was this family called the Medici family. The Medicis worked as bankers and they were a successful family. So imagine how much money they had. With their wealth, they accommodate the developments of arts and sciences brought by these immigrants. Over time, not only did these immigrants develop arts and sciences, they also preserved the ones that were lost and brought them back.
Man, it's crazy how much power money holds.
Tell me about it. But those weren't just because of the money. These people were smart, and their brilliant minds contributed a lot to society even until today. Did you know that the Protestant Reformation started around the same period?
You mean Martin Luther's Protestant Reformation?
Yes, Martin Luther. So there was this German guy, Johannes Gutenberg, who invented the printing press. Don't ask me how he did it, because if I knew, I would have printed my own money. Anyway, like I said, ancient people are smarter than we think.
Yes, they were. Anyway, Martin Luther used this innovation to print books for the purpose of changing how Christianity and the Catholic Church were perceived by the Europeans. It was like social media in the 16th century. Imagine if every Instagram story could change the world. Oh wait, that kind of happens until this day too.
Right? One story, and the next thing you know, you're trending.
Exactly. The invention of Luther challenged the authority of the Catholic Church and encouraged the people to think of themselves. This shift is also and still relevant up to this day as we look for information out here. We need to question what we're told, just like they did in the past.
What a great reminder as well that the power of the printed word can change lives.
Totally. So what you're saying is if I start a blog, I could be the next Martin Luther? I'm just kidding. Moving on. Let's also look into some of the cool advancements in the period of the Renaissance. You know, other than the fancy clothes and great music.
Exactly. Just think of the architectural designs during those times that were all popular and very widely admired. Those columns, pilasters, and domes.
Sounds fancy. What's a plaster? Is that like a pasta dish?
Not quite. A plaster is actually a decorative column, kind of like putting an icing on a cake to make it look pretty.
And speaking of pretty, one of the most famous buildings during this time is the Florence Cathedral, designed by Filippo Brunelleschi. It's a masterpiece.
Florence Cathedral? Sounds like a great place for a 0.5 selfie moment.
Definitely. Just imagine the backdrop. But this isn't just about how it appeared to look good. The designs show the creativity and the brilliance of the artists and the thinkers of that time.
Exactly. And this period saw a different view of interest in humanism. This could only mean that people started focusing more on the achievement of the individual and their experiences rather than focusing on the rights of the kingly divine.
So, was it like the ultimate movement of self-help?
Yes, people were like, hey, I can do more than just serving the king. So you see how the Renaissance was the moment that brought back old ideas and arts after the Dark Ages. And we also talk about important people like Martin Luther, who changed the way that we think and share ideas, especially through the printing press. And this period also helped us to focus on our individual talents and creativity, as it is still relevant in our world today.
And speaking of doing more, let's talk about fashion.
So, what do people actually wear during that time?
Well, men usually worked as farmers, goldsmiths, and bakers. And their fashion? Just picture them wearing hats.
And for women, it was all about those sweeping gowns. I mean, if you were going to turn heads, you might as well do it dramatically.
What about music? Were they just serenading each other in those gowns?
Yes, they did. During this era, music evolved from the services in church to entertaining the audiences. It was like the Renaissance version of a concert tour.
And then came the later phase of the Renaissance called Mannerism. Just think of it as the emo teen phase of art.
Are we talking about those exaggerated poses and elongated shapes?
You got it. Basically, it was all about trying new techniques and reflecting on complex emotions. It was like, why stand straight when you can't pose dramatically?
Exactly. It was the more is more approach to art.
Fashion in the Renaissance was about men in hats and women wearing sweeping gowns that turned heads. Music evolved from church services to lively performances, making it a good time for entertainment. And with mannerism, art took on a dramatic flair, emphasizing on complex emotions and unique poses. It was a time of innovation and expression where more truly meant more.
Cool. So what about literature? Did they have any cool writers?
Absolutely. Art wasn't the only thing that is about the Renaissance, but also the golden age for literature, moving away from any serious religious topic from the past.
One of the coolest forms they introduced was the sonnet. Think of it as like a poetic love letter, but having specific rules with it.
So, kinda like poetry had to dress up for a formal event and follow the straight dress code?
Yes, you've got the Shakespearean and the Petrarchan that were named after the writers who made them all well known. They were quite the literary duo.
Speaking of Shakespeare, he wrote plays that are still performed today. Have you ever heard A Midsummer Night's Dream or Hamlet?
Of course. I know other stuff about it. I should know. I'm an English major. And from what I remember, he was the original rock star of the theater scene.
Exactly. Of course, let's not forget Dante Alighieri and his epic, The Divine Comedy. It's like binge watching a series, but you need a dictionary.
Shout out to the printing press. These works could actually be shared widely.
Question: what's the printing press like? Was it like a really big stamp on a coffee mug?
Close. The printing press is actually allowed mass production of books. This made literature accessible to everyone, not just the elite.
Same as vernacular literature, which means written works in everyday language that everyone could enjoy.
So no more ancient scrolls that need a translator?
You bet. It's like the first social media platform for literature. Everyone and anyone can join the conversation.
And with this change, the Renaissance really marked a turning point when it comes to art, culture, and thought.
To sum it up, the Renaissance changed literature by introducing poetry forms like sonnet and making books available for everyone with the printing press. Also, writers like Shakespeare and Dante helped shape the way we think and talk about stories. Overall, this time really changed the way we share ideas and art.
Well, who would have thought a rebirth would have made such an exciting literary period?
Right? So, what do you say? Are you ready to share this to others?
Just remember, no fancy beards needed. And no tights, unless you're feeling woe.
Oh, perfect. There you have it. That's the history of the Renaissance. Okay.
Oh my gosh. My goodness.